Hey Mama, today I have special guest Michelle Purta joining us to talk about how to thrive in our marriage after having our kiddos. It can be so easy to put the kids first and our husbands and our marriage until it's too late. Now, Michelle Purta is a married mom of three and a marriage coach for mamas. She's also the host of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. Michelle is passionate about helping women curate their experiences of life so they are deeply satisfied in it. She helps women have meaningful relationships with themselves, their husbands, and their kids. She specializes in healthy communication, emotional awareness, and nurturing deep connections in marriage. So let's get this conversation started so that we can thrive in our marriage with kiddos. Hey Mama, are you struggling with how to make time for yourself as a work-at-home mom? Are you drowning in laundry and dishes, poopy diapers, and kids who are constantly screaming, Mom, even though they're 5 feet away from you? I get it. I'm Jessa Ray, and this is Caught Up in Motherhood, where I want to help you set priorities, create boundaries, ask for help, and learn to love yourself in motherhood again. You can show up for you without sacrificing motherhood and without the guilt. So if you're ready to be caught up in motherhood, then go grab a fresh cup of coffee and that laundry basket sitting in the corner. Don't worry, I've got mine too. And listen in to today's episode. Welcome back to Caught Up in Motherhood, and today I have Michelle Purta on with us to talk about marriage, and I am so excited to have Michelle talk to us how to thrive in marriage while raising our littles. And before we get into all of the meaty questions that I have for Michelle today, I'd love it first if you could kind of tell us a little bit more about you, Michelle, and how you got started.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, you know that I'm a mom of 3 and I am a marriage coach. So, I actually started doing this because it kind of fell into place. It's not like something that I dreamed of doing. So, I have a psychology background and worked in corporate for a while doing human resources. And when I got pregnant with my first biological child, so I'm also a stepmom with a 13-year-old, and it was time to go back to work. He was born, but for whatever reason, I got all these signs to not do that. So I stayed at home with my son and started trying to figure out my life. Like, what am I doing? What do I want to do with myself? And went down the path of discovering what my purpose was. And a friend had kind of just pointed me in the direction of life coaching. I'd never heard of it at the time. And I talked to her life coach, eventually got trained under her. And I started talking to a lot of moms and realized that I had a lot to say when it came to marriage. Now, looking back, it makes a lot of sense because I experienced my relationship changing in different ways when I started dating my husband, who already had a son. So it kind of just fell into the deep end with motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, when I had my second son, and I realized that because of my past, right? Like my parents' relationship and how it impacted me in my relationships, romantic ones, it makes a lot of sense why I now do this, because I've had to personally go through my own journey of learning how to understand myself better, how to love myself, how to communicate more effectively, and how to connect with my partner while there's all these other things going on, all these distractions
Yes.
with life, with kids, with remembering who I am and prioritizing us as a couple. It kind of can seem like we're balancing all these different plates. And I can see why, in the first several years of marriage, it can be really, really challenging when you have young kids. And so now I get to have the pleasure of supporting women in learning how to have healthy communication with their spouse so that they can connect and have fun and have that marriage that they really saw for themselves when they first got married, like when we were bright-eyed and thought like, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, life is going to be so great. We'll have a little family. We'll still be able to feel like a couple and do this amazing job raising our kids and have fun. And then we experience reality and it doesn't look anything like that. And what used to be a couple that really supported each other turns into this couple that kind of sometimes can't stand each other and
Mhm.
argue a lot and don't feel like they're on the same team. So
Yes.
my thing here is to help them rediscover who they are as a couple after kids so that they know how to navigate those arguments so that they can grow closer together as a couple and still be able to connect with each other in the midst of people asking for food and snacks and changing diapers or shuttling everyone to different sports and being able to enjoy their marriage no matter what stage of motherhood is so that come time when they all move out, you don't feel like strangers and you're like, how do I hang out with you? What do we have in common again? Or maybe not even make it to that point, right?
Right.
So, yeah.
Oh, I love all of that. I was getting all excited about it because you hit on so many great things. Just giving us an intro on you, Michelle, about marriage and that reconnection, and even like you said, down the road, not knowing who they are anymore or who you are. And you're like,
Mhm.
why are we together again? I
Yep.
think that's a fear a lot of us have, is we don't want to get to that point. So we need to do the work now to reconnect and stay connected to prevent that from happening. And like you said, not just have the running to-do list and talking about, let's do this, and then forgetting to ask, well, how are you?
Mhm.
And dating again and all those things. I think that's all great and getting me excited to have this conversation a little deeper. So you touched on the different stages of motherhood and the different stages of marriage a little bit and how they change over time. And as soon as you add in that new factor, baby or
Mhm.
babies, stepkids, just adding in that other person that you have to be in charge of and taking care of, all of a sudden your marriage changes a little bit and we have to adjust and we need to know how to adjust. So, with that and with the whole adjusting in marriage, can you give us some tips on how we can improve um, this time together? So, I guess what I'm asking is why is it when we have our kids and we're in this new stage, it feels so hard.
Yes.
You know, like you're just trying to be mom and then all of a sudden you also have to be wife. So how, and I guess, yeah, why does it feel so hard when you have young kids to do both?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's something biological that changes with us when we have kids.
Mhm.
We go from being very self-centered people to being kid-centered. Everything revolves around the kid, their nap time, their feeding time, what they like, what they don't like, that we forget a big piece of ourselves. We forget what hobbies we like to do. We forget to dress how we enjoy to be dressed. We
Mhm.
forget a lot of our stuff and we go through this loss of identity. And in that process, our husbands are also losing their wife, which is
Mhm.
really sad, right? So we are focused on being the best mom we can be, which social media does not help with that, right? Because best
No, it
mom
does
is
not.
different for everybody.
Yes. Are you lost in motherhood and feeling overwhelmed with managing it all? The house, the kids, the running around, and everything in between. You're just so tired that the thought of taking time for yourself is simply exhausting. So instead, you numb out on social media and eat those snacks that are hiding in the back of the freezer. And while you're doing this, you're beating yourself up and comparing yourself to the others that you see online, wondering, why can't I do that? Why doesn't my house look like that? And then you go to bed and you tell yourself you'll do better tomorrow. Tomorrow, you'll take some time for yourself. Tomorrow, you'll go to bed early. Tomorrow, you'll plan a date night. But tomorrow never comes. Those promises that you keep making to yourself, they don't happen because you keep doing the same thing over and over again, just like yesterday, but you're expecting different results. I know this feeling. I have been there. I have been lost in these moments of feeling inadequate in loving my kids and wanting to provide for them in the best way possible, but feeling like I'm failing. Like I'm not doing enough. I'm not good enough. You are not alone, Mama. I see you and I want to help you get past this. Get past these negative feelings and thoughts. I want to see you thrive in your motherhood journey and own this season that you're in. I want to help you see the positive in the everyday and enjoy the little moments and learn how to support yourself again. I want to be your best mom friend next door, whose door is always open, the iced coffee is always ready, and that porch swing is always swinging. I am here to guide you through the tough days because, Mama, I've been there. I know what you're feeling, and it's okay. These feelings are valid, but it's how we respond to them that can change the course of our day. Now, Mama, this right here, these feelings that you're experiencing right now, this is why I created my Mama Connection Coaching. I want to help mamas like you, mamas like me, mamas that want to do it all, that know that it starts with them and how they talk to themselves. Mamas that know that you can do it. You just need a little help, a little encouragement to get started. So what do you say? Are you ready to come knock on my door and start connecting with yourself again? Are you ready to feel caught up in your motherhood journey, to know that you got this? Then I encourage you, Mama, to book a Mama Connection coaching call today so that tomorrow can come and you will be ready and you got this.
We put all this pressure on ourselves to do things the right way. There's so many different opinions out there. There's Pinterest showing you all the things that you're not doing, the standards that you're not living up to, and we're losing touch with ourself. What does this look like for me? How do I want it to look like? Is this something I even have the capacity to do? Does it even matter to me? And so we start to focus too much on what it's like for the child, what it's like to look like that great mom definition that society has painted for us, that we forget to get back in touch with ourselves. And in that process, we are looking at our husbands because it looks like their life is not changing that much. Maybe less sleep because a baby's crying, or, there's more stuff to do and you're not able to help as much around the house. But it still looks like they have time to go take care of themselves, whether they still go to the gym or hang out with their buddies. And meanwhile, we're here at home with the kids and we kind of blame them. We grow resentful, and then arguments turn out really horribly because we're not taking care of ourselves. So our capacity to handle conflict shrinks. We're also not taking the time to figure out, okay, well, how am I doing this to myself also, right? It's not that they're saying you can't go out, you need to stay home.
Right.
We're kind of doing that to ourselves, and we're forgetting, oh, what do I need to be my best self as a mom? That's very different, right? We cannot blame not having enough time because who's making the schedule? We are.
Right.
Right? And so the lack of communication skills starts to become more apparent because we're cranky, we're burned out, we're tired, we feel overwhelmed by all the things that we need to do. And so the things that we needed to have developed prior to having kids really shows up in a big way when we see dishes left out, when we see our husband sleep in, when we see, all these different signs that kind of make you cringe, like, oh my God, if that were me, I would not do that, right? We start comparing ourselves and kind of like putting our husband up against what we would do if we were them, which is not fair,
Right.
right? And so the lack of communication or lack of using skills to communicate effectively start to turn this relationship away from being partners and closer into being like a mother-child dynamic, which is an intimacy killer.
Yes. When you see your spouse as another child.
Yes. It makes me cringe every time I
Uh-huh.
see somewhere where like, "Oh, yeah, I have, 4 kids. I've got 3 that I gave birth to and 1 that I married." It's just like, "Oh my gosh,
Oof.
that's not a good setup."
No. No. That hits such some good points, and it makes me think back about my first experience becoming mom. And like you said, communication's big, and it's projecting in a way what
Totally.
we're not getting onto them. Like, oh, he gets to leave the house and go to work. He gets to go do his self-care. And like you said, resenting them when, like you said, we're the ones making the schedule,
Mhm.
and we need to put that time aside for us as well. And then, like you said, communicating with him so that he knows what we need. Like, he got to sleep in on Saturday. Well, did we ask him or talk to him about that? Maybe I wanted to sleep in on Saturday. Well, how does he know that if we don't tell him?
Right.
And I know that's something my husband tells me all the time too, is I'm an internalizer, and I know this, and he does too. So he's always the one probing and asking questions to try to get those things out of me. And we've gotten better over the years. But that's something that he'll ask me. He's like, I know you've gotten up with the kids all week at 4. He's like, do you want to sleep in on Saturday? Like, he's learned to just ask or just to offer and be, or just get up on his own and not
Mhm.
even tell me, which has been great. But like you said, it's that communication and working towards improving that and getting back to that partnership, I think is so good. But with that communication, when we're figuring out and we don't know what to do or we don't know how to communicate with our spouses anymore because we don't know what we need, we don't know what we want, or we're
Mhm.
having a hard time verbalizing it, how can we, or how would you suggest that we improve our communication style so we do have a little bit less arguing and that less of that man child projecting going on?
Mhm. Yeah, I think unfortunately, majority of us, myself included, did not grow up learning the communication skills needed to have
Mhm.
productive conversations when we're in a conflict, especially in romantic relationships.
Yes.
And so, how that often comes out is you either hold it in and then you explode, or you're really quick to just like start the conversation and there's no direction, right?
Mhm.
And then he's left guessing what you're trying to say while feeling attacked. And you're like, gosh, why doesn't he see me? Why doesn't he understand me? Why isn't he just doing what I need him to do? But I'm not telling him what I need him to do. Like, why can't he just be
Right.
that perfect husband that could read my mind? Right. So a lot of it goes unspoken because there's so much going on that's swirling in our minds that we don't share. And so, a big part of being able to set yourself up to feel confident during conflict is to take a breath. Like, take a moment to yourself. Understand, what am I actually feeling right now and why? Why do I feel this way? And what is it that I'm needing? Like, if I were to be able to paint a picture for him, what would an ideal solution for our situation be? How do I want to feel after talking to him? What do I need from him? What do I need from myself? And how can I take personal responsibility for what's happened? Not to say that he didn't like play a part in it,
Right.
but also, what part did I play in this?
Mhm.
Did I assume that he would know what I needed? Did I not fill him in on what he needs to know and I just kind of like winged it and then got mad because he didn't, show up the way I needed him to? Was I not specific enough? Did he not understand the timing of what needed to be done? There's so many different things that aren't included in our communication that we can take responsibility for, from our approach to the information we're relaying to how we are assuming a lot, right? And so when you take that time to yourself to understand where you're coming from, right? Acknowledge
Mhm.
how you feel, what you need, what you want, and then entering the conversation, then you have a focus. Then you're being intentional and you have the capacity to be curious about his experience, what he thinks, what he wants to do, how he feels about stuff. And then you can open it up for it to be a dialogue rather than you talking at him, making him feel like he's in the principal's office and he's feeling attacked and he feels like he needs to defend himself, right? Or just
Mhm.
nod away, thinking, okay, I'm just going to agree with her until she gets off my back. Like, you don't want your conversations to feel like that, right? You want it to be like, okay, here's this issue. What can we do to resolve this together as partners? So, if you want a partnership, you also have to deal with conflict as partners. You cannot come to it as like, I have my needs. Okay, now let's fulfill them. Then you can be
Mhm.
on your merry way. Like, it is not a one sided thing. And if you want to have him see and hear you, you're going to have to take the time to see and hear yourself first so that you can communicate it with respect and compassion so that you're not criticizing or blaming.
That is such a good point. I loved all the little questions that you had in there about how to reconnect with yourself and kind of like a self check. Like, where am I
Yep.
at? I think that's great to take that minute, take that moment to breathe, like you said, and just reconnect with yourself. What do I need? What am I feeling? Painting that picture, like you said, and then having the conversation and
Yeah.
going from there.
Otherwise, like you could easily waste a couple hours just going
Mhm.
back and forth and having the conversation turn into something that's totally unrelated and you're just hanging on every word that's being said that you disagree with and it
Mhm.
becoming like a fight about words. Like that's not why you're there,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure you have a lot more better things to do with your time. And so if you really look back, because I was guilty of this, right? Like I've spent way too much time arguing with past partners, even like in the earlier years of my
Mhm.
marriage, talking about stuff that doesn't actually matter. But when you take that time to yourself to understand, like, okay, what's going on with me and understanding your internal world and experience, then you can get to the meat of the conversation way faster and approach it in a way where he actually wants to stay engaged in the conversation rather than feeling like, okay, let me suit up in my armor and get ready for battle because apparently we're not on the same team anymore and we're out for blood. Like, that is
Yeah.
not what you want to do. You want to set it up so that it's a successful conversation where you two are growing as a couple and really focusing on creating a win win solution so that you two can move on and no one's disgruntled about it.
Hey, Mama. I hope you enjoyed the first half of my conversation with Michelle as we talked about thriving in marriage. And next week, we're going to continue the conversation and we're going to talk about de escalating arguments with our husbands and how to reconnect after babies some more. So be sure to subscribe and follow so that you can hear the rest of Michelle's episode as we go into more detail on de-escalating arguments. And I'm telling you, you don't want to miss this one. Hey Mama, thanks for hanging out with me today. I know you have a lot going on and I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope this episode gave you new energy to tackle the day. If so, could you leave a review and subscribe to the podcast so that you never miss an episode? That would mean the world to me. I'd also love to connect with you on Instagram, so send me a DM and let me know if this episode was helpful. I love hearing from you. Remember, Mama, you got this. Until next time, I'm Jessa Ray, and this is Caught Up in Motherhood.